The news spread quickly, faster than any human could have imagined. It began as a quiet announcement, a sudden, startling message from the galaxy's edge. For years, humanity had lived in peace with the alien races, especially the Therovians, a species known for their intellect and superior technology. For 3,000 years, Earth had remained untouched, their military prowess seemingly unnecessary in the face of such lasting peace. But all of that was about to change. The Therovians had made an announcement. They were declaring war on humanity. The reasons for this sudden aggression were unclear. They spoke of an ancient prophecy, something about humanity's growth being a threat to the stability of the galaxy. The Therovians had watched Earth from afar, studied its progress, and decided that it was time to act. They believed the human race was becoming too powerful, and they feared what that might mean for their own future. The announcement was made in the form of a broadcast that echoed through every communications channel on Earth, a sharp, cold voice warning humanity of their impending doom. The Therovian Empire will not allow your kind to grow unchecked. Prepare yourselves for war, it said. Your time is over. For a moment, the world went silent. Governments, military leaders, and scientists scrambled to make sense of what was happening. People stared at their screens in disbelief, unsure if they were witnessing the beginning of the end or just another elaborate hoax. But it wasn't a joke. The Therovians meant business. As the news spread across the planet, something strange began to happen. Instead of panic or fear, the response from Earth's people was laughter. Everywhere, people began to laugh. It started with a few skeptical chuckles, and soon it spread like wildfire. The idea that a peaceful species, one that had been nothing but a distant, almost forgotten presence for millennia, would suddenly turn hostile seemed absurd. How could these aliens, who had watched over Earth for so long, suddenly choose to wage war? Humans began to mock the threat. Social media exploded with memes about the Therovians' declaration of war. Artists quickly turned the Therovian emperor into a meme, with their stern faces paired with captions like, "Just because you can build a spaceship doesn't mean you can win a war." Videos flooded the internet, showing clips of humans laughing at the very idea of an alien invasion. One popular video even showed a human comedian pretending to negotiate with the Therovians, speaking in an exaggerated alien accent, and asking, "So you want to fight us? With what? Laser pointers and space snacks?" The idea that such a peaceful species would be foolish enough to attack Earth seemed too ridiculous to take seriously. The human race, after all, had faced worse threats in the past. They had survived wars, pandemics, and environmental disasters. They had taken on enemies far more powerful than themselves, and somehow managed to come out on top. If anything, humans were known for their ingenuity, their ability to overcome impossible odds. Military leaders, expecting a world full of fear and panic, were instead met with a world full of laughter. People weren't scared. They were laughing. They joked that the Therovians were just trying to catch up to humanity's achievements, and that the only thing the Therovians could conquer was a good joke. Military communications were flooded with messages from civilians asking if the Therovians planned to bring popcorn to their war. In Washington, D.C., President Harrington sat at his desk, watching the broadcast in disbelief. He had expected chaos, but instead, the world was cracking jokes. At first, he thought it was a coping mechanism, a collective way of dealing with the shock. But as the hours passed and more jokes and memes appeared, he began to wonder if the aliens were truly underestimating humanity's response. "It's almost like they don't understand us," Harrington muttered to his advisors. "Do they really think they can scare us with a declaration like this? It's not just about our military might. It's about the spirit of humanity. We don't back down. We don't fear things like this." And as the hours turned into days, it became clear that the Therovians had underestimated humanity in a way they never expected. While their warships silently moved closer to Earth, humanity, without firing a single shot, had already begun their own form of defense. Laughter, unity, and an unwavering belief that no alien threat, no matter how powerful, could ever defeat them. The Therovians had declared war, but humanity had already won the first battle. They had not been scared. And that, the humans knew, was something the aliens could never understand. The Therovian High Command watched with growing frustration as their message of war continued to go ignored, mocked, and even laughed at by the humans. Caltrath, the supreme commander of the Therovian military, paced back and forth in his grand war room, his long silver hair brushing against his shoulders as his piercing eyes glared at the holographic displays in front of him. His sharp mind had calculated everything perfectly. The Therovians were technologically superior to humanity in almost every way. They had fleets of warships, drones capable of disabling entire cities, and weapons that could obliterate a planet. How then had the humans not even flinched? "We cannot allow this mockery to continue," Caltrath said, his voice filled with cold, calculated anger. "We declared war, and instead of fear, they laugh. What is this madness?" His second-in-command, Saravo, a stern female officer with a reputation for no-nonsense decisions, stepped forward. "We underestimated them, Commander. Their response is not what we expected. They are unafraid, even amused. This is not how civilizations react when confronted with their destruction." Caltrath slammed his fist onto the console, his frustration evident. "They have no idea what they are up against. We are the Therovians. We have conquered planets, crushed empires, and erased entire species from existence. These humans, these fragile creatures, they think they can laugh it off." Saravo nodded. "They are mocking us. Perhaps they believe our threat is a bluff, that we cannot truly harm them." The Therovians had been watching Earth from a distance for centuries. They knew about humanity's wars, their history of conflict and survival, and they had seen how humans had overcome seemingly impossible odds time and time again. Yet they never truly understood the essence of what made humanity unique: its ability to adapt, to think creatively, and to laugh in the face of danger. To the Therovians, it was an emotion they couldn't quite grasp, a reaction that didn't align with the cold, logical mindset they had cultivated for millennia. "Then we must show them," Caltrath said with renewed resolve, his voice cold as ice. "We will make them understand their position in the galaxy. We will break their spirit. I want all fleets mobilized. No more playing games." With that, the Therovian forces began to move. Hundreds of massive warships, each one equipped with weapons capable of destroying entire cities in an instant, left their orbiting stations and made their way toward Earth. The human laughter, however, only grew louder. Back on Earth, the world's leaders had gathered to discuss their response. President Harrington stood at the head of a large table, surrounded by military advisors and scientists. The initial shock of the Therovian Declaration had passed, and now the focus shifted to how humanity would respond. Despite the overwhelming technological advantage of the Therovians, there was a sense of determination in the room. No one was afraid. In fact, the more the Therovians threatened, the more determined the humans became to show them just how resilient they were. "How do we fight back against fleets that can destroy entire cities with a single strike?" one of the generals asked. Harrington, standing tall and calm, turned to face them. "We fight back with everything we have: our ingenuity, our unity, and most importantly, our humor. The Therovians don't understand us. They don't understand how we think. If we can turn that against them, we may just have a chance." The room fell silent for a moment. The Therovians had underestimated humanity's capacity for strength in the face of adversity. They had assumed that with their superior technology, humans would cower. But the truth was that humanity was far from helpless. They had survived wars, disasters, and even extinction-level events before. And each time, they came out stronger. This would be no different. "We need to show them that they can't break us," Harrington continued, his eyes glinting with a fire of determination. "Humans don't run from threats. We adapt, we overcome, and we fight back. We'll start by sending them a message. Let's hit them where it hurts. Humor. They've already made the mistake of underestimating us. Let's make them regret it. The human response was swift and unexpected. Military leaders and strategists began developing countermeasures, but in the meantime, the population's response continued to be full of jokes and memes. Social media platforms were flooded with videos of people pretending to defeat the Therovians by throwing pies at mock-ups of their warships, and scientists even began developing memes that turned the aliens' highly sophisticated war technology into the subject of ridiculous humor. On one particularly popular broadcast, a comedian stood in front of a giant green screen, holding up a small toy spaceship. "So the Therovians are sending their fleet to Earth," he said with a grin. "I wonder if they've been practicing their intergalactic diplomacy skills. Or maybe they just wanted a vacation spot that wasn't on their home planet. I hear Earth has great food when it's not under alien attack." The broadcast quickly went viral, and soon, humans everywhere were sharing their own versions of the "Defeat the Therovians" memes. It wasn't just humor. It was humanity's way of showing that no matter how powerful their enemy was, they would never bow down to fear. Instead, they would stand tall, laugh in the face of danger, and show the galaxy just how resilient they truly were. Meanwhile, Caltrath watched the growing wave of laughter and disbelief from the humans, his hands clenched into fists. "They think this is a joke," he muttered. "We will show them the consequences of underestimating the Therovians." But little did he know, he was walking into a battle humanity had already won, and it would be their laughter that would be their greatest weapon. The Therovian fleet was now only days away from Earth. Massive ships, each capable of wreaking havoc on an unimaginable scale, drifted through space, their cold, calculated commanders ready to make humanity realize their mistake. The Therovians had expected fear and despair. They had expected humanity to be crushed under the weight of their superior technology. But as the distance between the fleets and Earth shrank, the laughter from Earth only grew louder. The Therovians had underestimated the human spirit, and that would be their greatest mistake. Caltrath, the supreme commander of the Therovian military, stood at the helm of his flagship, watching Earth grow larger on the view screen. His sharp eyes narrowed. "Prepare for full engagement," he ordered. "The time for humor is over. We will make them regret their defiance." Meanwhile, back on Earth, the laughter had turned into something far more powerful. It had become a symbol of defiance, a rallying cry for humanity. The memes, the jokes, the videos, it was as if Earth had united in a single, massive wave of resistance. Even though the Therovian fleet was approaching, the people of Earth felt no fear. Instead, they were united in the belief that nothing, not even the most advanced alien empire, could break their will. In every corner of the world, people had started preparing. The military forces were mobilizing, but they were doing so in a way that defied the usual protocols. The generals had come together to form a strategy that was as unconventional as it was unexpected. It was not about matching firepower with firepower. No, this would be a battle of brains, creativity, and unshakable resolve. General Emma Sanchez, one of Earth's top military strategists, sat in her command center, staring at a digital map of the Earth. She tapped her fingers on the table as she thought, her mind racing through the possible outcomes. The Therovians think they can win with sheer force. But they're wrong. We've been underestimated before, and each time, we've found a way to turn the tide. This time will be no different. Her team of strategists gathered around her, waiting for her next words. They had spent hours analyzing the Therovian fleet's capabilities and the weaknesses in their strategy. Sanchez knew that their best chance was to outthink the aliens, not outfight them. And that meant using the one thing humanity had in abundance: ingenuity. "Let's hit them where it hurts," she said, a glint of determination in her eyes. "Humans are not afraid of their weapons. We will show them that we can stand tall, no matter what they throw at us." On Earth, civilians continued their own form of preparation. Some were involved in practical matters, preparing food, organizing shelters, gathering supplies. But others, driven by the power of humor and unity, were turning this moment into something unique. In every major city, massive crowds gathered, waving banners and chanting slogans, not of fear, but of strength. Signs appeared everywhere, mocking the Therovians and their supposed superiority. "Laugh now, cry later," one sign read, while another simply said, "Our fists are stronger than your ships." The movement had grown beyond memes. It had become a global force. No one knew exactly how they would face the alien fleet, but they all knew that if humanity was going to fight, it would be on their own terms. As the Therovian fleet neared the outer edges of Earth's solar system, Caltrath's frustration began to boil over. "We have given them every opportunity to surrender. They refuse. Now we will teach them what happens to those who defy the Therovian Empire." He stood before his commanding officers, his voice cold and unyielding. "We will begin by targeting their major cities. We will show them the full power of our weapons. And once they are broken, once they beg for mercy, we will make them regret their foolish resistance." Zaravo, his second in command, stood silently beside him, her thoughts troubled. She had been with Caltrath through many campaigns, and she had never seen him so confident in their victory. But something about the way humanity had responded didn't sit right with her. It wasn't fear, and it wasn't desperation. It was something else, a defiance that was hard to read, but undeniably powerful. "You underestimate them, Commander," Zaravo said quietly. "They are not the type to surrender easily. Their spirit, it's unlike any we've encountered before." Caltrath turned sharply to her. "Do not question me, Zaravo. I know what must be done." But deep down, even he began to wonder if he had truly understood humanity. They weren't acting out of panic. They weren't shaking in fear. No, they were laughing, mocking, and resisting with every fiber of their being. They were showing the Therovians something Caltrath had never seen before, a resistance that could not be broken, a people who refused to bow to anything or anyone. Back on Earth, President Harrington addressed the world. His voice was calm, confident, and unwavering. "The Therovians may have superior weapons, but they do not have our will. They may have warships, but we have hearts that cannot be silenced. They can attack our cities, they can destroy our buildings, but they cannot destroy us. The spirit of humanity is stronger than anything they can throw at us. We stand united. We laugh in the face of their threats, and we will never surrender." Across the planet, people raised their voices in unison. The laughter that had started as mockery had turned into something far greater, a symbol of humanity's refusal to be cowed by anyone, no matter how powerful. The Therovians were about to learn that the greatest weapon of all was the unbreakable will of humankind. And as the Therovian fleet entered Earth's atmosphere, ready for battle, they were about to face the one thing they had never prepared for. An opponent who would never back down, no matter how many times they tried to make humanity fall. The Therovian fleet had now entered Earth's atmosphere, their massive ships blocking out the stars like a dark cloud. The Earth was a small, fragile world to them, a place where they had expected to easily crush any opposition. But what they saw when they arrived was far from what they had prepared for. On the surface of the Earth, humanity had turned the impossible into a challenge of creativity and resilience. Across the globe, the atmosphere was thick with a sense of unity, as if everyone had suddenly realized the power of their own resolve. Earth's cities stood ready, not in fear, but in defiance. General Emma Sanchez, who had been central to Earth's military strategy, stood in her command center, staring at the screens. "They're here," she said calmly, the weight of the moment hanging in the air. "But we're ready." All across Earth, every country had mobilized in their own way. Some prepared their forces for direct conflict, while others focused on hacking and disrupting the Therovian fleet's communication systems. The military leaders knew they couldn't outgun the Therovians, but they could outsmart them. It was humanity's greatest strength: creativity and adaptability. In the United States, civilian engineers and tech experts worked alongside soldiers in making modifications to their own technology. Human ingenuity was showing its strength in ways the aliens could not have expected. Planes, once meant for travel, had been turned into makeshift weapons. The military had equipped fighter jets with new experimental devices, silent electromagnetic pulse bombs designed to temporarily disable alien ships. They were not a permanent solution, but they could buy precious time. Across the globe, similar efforts were underway. In China, drones that had once been used for agriculture now flew in formations, ready to carry out attacks. In Europe, hackers worked tirelessly to infiltrate the alien fleet's digital systems, planting bugs that would scramble the enemy's communications. Meanwhile, the Thorovian commanders, still expecting a quick surrender, found themselves growing increasingly frustrated. The human resistance wasn't retreating. It was growing stronger with each passing hour. They had prepared for an easy victory, but humanity's unity and ingenuity were starting to prove difficult to crack. Caltrath, supreme commander of the Thorovian fleet, was losing patience. He watched Earth's response unfold on the massive screens aboard his flagship. "Why do they fight like this?" he muttered, pacing back and forth. "They should be cowering. This defiance, it is beyond my understanding." Zaravo, his second in command, stood silently beside him. She had been with Caltrath through many campaigns, but this was different. The humans' resistance was unlike anything they had encountered. It was as if they thrived on adversity, using their limited resources not in fear, but in creativity. "Commander," Zaravo said softly, her tone cautious, "we've underestimated them. Their unity, their resolve. It's something we don't understand. Perhaps we need to rethink our strategy." Caltrath paused, his sharp eyes narrowing as he turned to face her. "No," he said firmly. "We will crush them as we always have. They will submit." But even he wasn't fully convinced. The laughter from Earth, which had started as mockery, had now turned into an anthem of resistance. The memes, the jokes, the viral videos, they were everywhere. Humanity was laughing in the face of a threat they could not even fully comprehend. The humor was infectious, creating a bond between millions. It was as if humanity had found strength in their ability to mock the very aliens who had come to conquer them. Back on Earth, President Harrington addressed the world again. This time, his speech was not one of hope, but of determination. "The Thorovians believe they can take us down with force, but they are wrong. We have something they can't match: our unity, our creativity, and our unbreakable spirit. We stand together, and we will fight as one. The battle is not over. It has only just begun." And the people of Earth responded. From the streets to the factories, from the laboratories to the military bases, every person had a role to play. They knew the Thorovians could destroy their cities, but they could not destroy their will to survive. The human spirit, tested by thousands of years of conflict and struggle, was unbreakable. The Thorovian ships began their descent, preparing for a full-scale invasion. But as they entered Earth's atmosphere, something unexpected happened. A loud noise, like a giant pulse, rang out across the sky, disrupting the Thorovian fleet's communication systems. The pulse was a new weapon, a result of months of human ingenuity. It wasn't enough to destroy the ships, but it was enough to scramble their systems, buying Earth valuable time. The aliens had never encountered anything like it before. They had expected advanced weaponry, but they hadn't counted on humanity's ability to adapt and innovate in such a short period of time. In the skies above Earth, fighter jets engaged the Thorovian fleet, launching surprise attacks. They weren't designed to win the war, but they were designed to be a nuisance, disrupting the aliens' precision and coordination. Humanity's goal was not to fight the Thorovians head-on, but to delay their plans, disrupt their strategy, and frustrate them at every turn. Back on the ground, humanity's creativity continued to shine. Civilian efforts weren't just about surviving. They were about fighting back. Communities organized rallies, further boosting morale, and mocking the Therovians even more. A new wave of viral memes emerged, showcasing Earth's refusal to submit, laughing in the face of destruction. One meme read, showing a smiling human in front of an alien warship. The Therovians had expected humanity to break. Instead, they were seeing something far worse. A people united by laughter, creativity, and resilience, determined to show that their spirit would not be shattered. The battle was just beginning, and humanity's laughter was their weapon. The Therovians had expected a quick victory, but it had now been days since they arrived, and things were not going as planned. The humans had proven to be unpredictable, fighting not just with weapons, but with something far stronger: determination. Caltrath stood aboard his flagship, watching as Earth's resistance continued to grow. The Earthlings had proven themselves to be an unusual enemy, one that could not be intimidated. They had been mocked, laughed at, and underestimated, but now it was clear that they would not back down. He clenched his fists in frustration. "What is this?" Caltrath demanded. "They are relentless. We have unleashed our full power upon them. And yet they do not bend. They continue to fight back, even in the face of certain destruction." Zaravo, his second-in-command, stood quietly beside him. She had seen battles before, but this one was unlike any she had experienced. The humans had a strange resilience, a force of will that was not so easily broken. "Commander," Zaravo said carefully, "perhaps this isn't a battle we can win by force alone. Their unity, their will, it is like nothing we've seen before. We might need to change our approach." Caltrath growled, glaring at the screens. "Change our approach? They are weaker than us. They cannot survive our might for long." But even as he spoke, Caltrath couldn't ignore the reality that the humans were proving far harder to crush than he had ever anticipated. He had expected their cities to burn, their people to fall into chaos. But instead, they were standing tall, fighting back with every resource they could find. Every day, new weapons, new strategies, new ideas were being used against them. While the Therovians wrestled with how to fight back, Earth was more united than ever. Across the globe, humanity had formed a resistance unlike anything the Therovians had ever faced before. From the jungles of Africa to the snowy plains of Siberia, humans were working together, setting aside differences to fight for their world. In the United States, military forces had teamed up with local engineers to create new technologies that were beginning to take a toll on the Therovian ships. The humans had hacked into the aliens' power grid, shutting down some of their more advanced weapons. They had also learned to use the Therovian technology against them. Weapons originally designed for the aliens' use had been modified by human hands, and now they were working against their creators. Back in Russia, soldiers had teamed up with the local scientists to create weapons that could disable the Therovian shields. They had used a combination of human ingenuity and alien technology, working with a purpose: survival. Every country had its own team of inventors, soldiers, and civilians coming together, determined to outsmart the aliens at every turn. Even more unexpected was the cultural impact. On the internet, the human sense of humor had taken a life of its own. Memes mocking the aliens flooded social media, and the Earthlings found strength in their jokes. People laughed as they fought, showing the Therovians just how much they underestimated them. Videos of soldiers, engineers, and civilians, all laughing in the face of the invasion, became viral. It was as though the whole world had become a single unit, united by the belief that they could never be defeated. In the war rooms, leaders were beginning to see a change in the tides. President Harrington stood at the podium, addressing the world once again. "Today, we show the Therovians that we are not afraid," he said. "They may have superior weapons, but they do not have what we have: our unity, our creativity, and our determination to protect our world. We will fight back not with fear, but with everything we have. The fight for Earth is not just for survival, It is for the future of humanity." The words echoed through the hearts of every human on Earth. People cheered in the streets, in their homes, in their workplaces. They knew the war was far from over, but now they knew they were stronger than ever before. The Therovians had no idea what they were up against. Meanwhile, the Therovian fleet was growing more restless. Their commanders were beginning to panic. They had expected to destroy the Earthlings by now, but their technology had failed to overpower the humans' will. And the more they pressed forward, the more the humans resisted. It seemed as though every time the Therovians hit Earth with their most powerful weaponry, the humans had an answer. A new countermeasure, a clever plan, a bold new attack. Caltrath was losing his patience. "This is ridiculous," he shouted. "Why won't they just surrender? Why are they still laughing? Do they not see their doom? Are they not afraid?" Xuravo stood silently, her expression thoughtful. "Perhaps, Commander, they are not afraid. Perhaps they are laughing because they know something we do not." The commander turned to her sharply. "What do you mean?" "They may not have the weapons we have," Xuravo said, her voice calm but firm. "But they have something far more dangerous. They have the strength to laugh, to fight, and to never give up. And that, Commander, is something we cannot simply defeat with force alone." Caltrath stood still for a long moment, the weight of Xuravo's words sinking in. Could the humans really win this war with their laughter, their unity, and their creativity? It seemed impossible, but the longer he watched, the clearer it became. This was not just a fight for Earth. It was a fight for the very soul of humanity. And they were not ready to lose. The situation had become a battle of wills. Caltrath paced nervously aboard his flagship, his mind racing with plans and counterplans. The Therovians had come to Earth expecting an easy victory, but now they were caught in a war of attrition, one they had never expected. The humans, despite their relatively primitive technology compared to the Therovian Empire, were showing a remarkable resilience. Every attempt to crush them had failed, and now they were pushing back in ways that were almost incomprehensible. Caltrath had watched as humans, who once seemed like a fractured and disorganized species, had united under one common cause: to defend their home. Every time the Therovian forces launched an attack, the humans countered with new tactics and strategies, using their intelligence and sheer determination to turn the tide. The Earthlings were no longer the weak prey the Therovians had once seen them as. They were a force, and it seemed to grow stronger every day. "This is not going as planned," Caltrath muttered to himself. "Why aren't they afraid? Why aren't they crumbling under our power?" Xuravo, his loyal second-in-command, watched her superior in silence. She had seen Caltrath lose his composure before, but this was different. This time, the weight of the war was beginning to show on him. She could understand why. They had underestimated humanity's ability to adapt. It had been a mistake, one that now threatened to turn the war against them. "They are resilient," Xuravo said carefully, "but they are not invincible. We have the advantage. Their weapons are primitive compared to ours, and we have the power to destroy them. We just need to keep pressing. Eventually, they will break." Caltrath shook his head. "No, it's more than that. It's not just about weapons or power. There's something else driving them, something we can't predict. Their spirit, their laughter. It's like nothing I've ever seen." Xuravo frowned. She had heard stories of human laughter before, but now she was beginning to see its true meaning. The humans' laughter wasn't a sign of mockery or defiance. It was a symbol of their resilience. No matter how much pressure they were under, no matter how overwhelming the odds, the humans refused to give in. They laughed, they fought, and they kept moving forward. "This is no longer just a war," Xuravo said softly. "It's a test of our strength against theirs, and I'm beginning to wonder if we're the ones who are outmatched." Caltrath glared at the star map in front of him, but his thoughts were elsewhere. Every attack the Therovians made seemed to only strengthen the humans' resolve. The cities they destroyed, the lives they took. It only fueled the anger of the human resistance. They were fighting not just for survival, but for something deeper. For their families, their homes, their way of life. Meanwhile, on Earth, the humans were not slowing down. Every day, new forces were joining the fight, and new strategies were emerging. The humans had begun working together in ways the Therovians had never thought possible. Military forces from every nation had formed an unprecedented alliance, pooling their resources, knowledge, and technology. Engineers were working around the clock to build new weapons and defenses. Scientists were studying Therovian technology, learning how to use it to their advantage. Every human who could fight was doing so, and those who couldn't were supporting the war effort in every way they could. It was a unity the Therovians had never seen before. President Harrington stood before the global summit, his voice steady and full of resolve. The Therovians think they can break us, but they don't understand what it means to be human. We are not just fighting for our homes. We are fighting for the future of our children, for everything we've worked for. We will not back down. We will stand united, and we will win. The leaders of Earth, once divided by politics and distance, now stood as one. They knew the odds were long, but they believed in their people. They had seen firsthand how the human spirit could overcome even the greatest challenges. And all across Earth, people were doing exactly that. In the streets, in the fields, in the factories, and in the bunkers, humanity was fighting with everything it had. From the small villages to the sprawling metropolises, Earth's resistance was growing stronger, and the Therovians could do nothing to stop it. The Earthlings had found strength in each other, and in the face of overwhelming odds, that strength was more than enough to stand firm. Kal Trath watched from his flagship as the latest attack on a human city failed. The Therovian forces had been repelled once again. He had expected to see the humans break, to watch them crumble under the pressure, but instead, they were becoming more organized, more determined. It was as though each failure only made them more resolute. We cannot defeat them with force alone, Kal Trath admitted, his voice low. But they cannot keep this up forever. Sooner or later, they will run out of strength. Zaravo's gaze was sharp as she replied, "Perhaps, Commander, it is not strength that will determine the outcome of this war. Perhaps it is something more, something that cannot be measured in firepower or resources." Kal Trath frowned. "And what is that?" Zaravo did not answer immediately. Instead, she turned her eyes toward Earth, a planet that had once seemed so insignificant. Now, it felt like the heart of a galaxy-wide conflict. "It is their will, Commander. It is the one thing we cannot defeat." The Therovian forces were beginning to feel the pressure. For months, they had launched wave after wave of attacks against Earth, expecting a swift victory. Instead, they found themselves fighting a war unlike any they had ever faced before. The humans, a species they had once dismissed as weak and divided, were proving to be an unstoppable force. Kal Trath stood on the bridge of his flagship, staring out at the stars. His mind raced with possibilities, but all of them seemed to lead to the same conclusion. They had underestimated humanity. He had thought that the Therovian Empire's advanced technology would be enough to crush the humans. Yet each time they struck, the humans fought back with even more ingenuity, more determination, and a spirit that refused to break. The Therovians had already lost countless battles. The humans were not just surviving, they were thriving. Their resistance had grown more organized and more powerful with each passing day. It seemed that every time the Therovians found a weakness, the humans adapted and found a way to turn the tables. "We need a new plan," Kal Trath muttered under his breath. Zaravo, who had been quietly observing her commander, spoke up. "Perhaps it is time we reconsider our strategy. We've thrown everything at them, yet they persist. It is not their technology that we are fighting. It is their resolve." Kal Trath turned to her, his face filled with frustration. "Resolve doesn't win wars. Power does. The humans have no chance against our superior forces." Zaravo didn't respond immediately. Instead, she glanced out at Earth on the monitor. The planet was teeming with life, a planet full of people who refused to give up, no matter the cost. Their laughter, their unity, and their resilience were the forces that were turning the tide of the war. The Therovians had never encountered anything like this before. They do not give up, Sarajevo finally said. That is their strength. That is what makes them different from us. They are not fighting for power or control. They are fighting for something far more valuable. Caltrath clenched his fists. We've attacked their cities, destroyed their resources, killed their people, and still they stand. How can they be so persistent? Sarajevo paused, choosing her words carefully. It is not just their will to survive that fuels them. It is their sense of unity. The more we attack, the more they come together. The more we destroy, the more they rebuild. Their spirit cannot be broken. Caltrath felt a cold knot in his stomach. It was true. The humans had shown time and again that no matter how much they were pushed, they would always fight back. And their fighting was not just about weapons. It was about something deeper, a belief in themselves and each other. That belief made them stronger than any weapon could ever be. As the days passed, Caltrath found himself grappling with a growing sense of doubt. He had seen humans face impossible odds and still emerge victorious. They were fighting not just to survive, but for their future, for their families, and for their way of life. They had shown him that they were not just a species of weakness and division, as he had once thought. They were a species of incredible strength, driven by something far greater than any war could hope to extinguish. Meanwhile, on Earth, the tide of the war had started to shift. The human alliance had grown stronger, and they had begun to push back against the Therovian invaders. The combined forces of Earth's nations were hitting the Therovian fleet harder than ever before. The humans were using everything at their disposal: their knowledge of the land, their resourcefulness, and their unity. It was as if the more the Therovians pushed, the more the humans pushed back. President Harrington stood in front of the cameras once again, his voice filled with determination. We will not back down. We will not let fear or force drive us from our home. The Therovians may have technology, but we have something they cannot understand: our will, our unity, and our fight for what is ours. Across the world, people watched and listened. They had seen their cities burn, their families taken, and their lives shattered. But they had also seen something else, something that could not be destroyed. They had seen the strength of humanity, the power of a species that refused to be conquered. The humans had united in ways that Caltrath could never have imagined. Nations that once fought each other now stood together. The streets, once filled with fear, now thrummed with the energy of a united people ready to fight. From the farmers to the scientists, the soldiers to the teachers, every human on Earth had found their role in the war. They were no longer just a species, they were a family, bound together by a common purpose. As Caltrath watched the humans' unity grow, a feeling of hopelessness crept over him. The Therovians had come to Earth expecting to break the humans, to take their planet for their own. But the more they tried to conquer, the more they learned about the power of the human spirit. And in that spirit, they had met their match. On the battlefield, the humans were no longer just fighting to survive. They were fighting for something far greater: their freedom, their future, and the legacy of their species. And no matter how hard the Therovians tried, they could not defeat the one thing that made humanity so powerful: their unbreakable will to fight.